Now that we've established the equilibrium, let's talk about what can result in changes in market equilibrium. We say any change in demand or a change in supply can result in a change in market equilibrium. So I'll now show you some examples of how changes in demand or changes in supply or both can result in market equilibrium to change. So first let's look at how a demand curve shift can change the equilibrium. Let's assume we're looking at a market for chocolates. So let's assume this is my demand and supply curve for chocolates. Now, let's also assume that there is a study out there that claims that having hot chocolate every day can result in your health to improve. Now, how will having hot chocolate resulting in your health to improve can result in a demand curve to change? And the answer is this is good news for producers of chocolate because the demand for chocolate will go up. So when the demand was D, now the demand curve will be D dash. Now what is happening as a result of this is that at the equilibrium price P naught, suddenly quantity demanded is not equal to quantity supplied, but there is a difference, and that difference here is this distance AB, where the quantity demanded at P naught is much higher at P, while the quantity supplied is at A, which means at the existing price P naught, there is what we call a shortage. And this shortage will lead to what we call an upward pressure on prices. So there will be an upward pressure on prices. The prices of this good will start to rise. And as the price starts to rise, you will see that producers will be encouraged to produce more. At the same time, consumers will find that the price is going up and they will start to sort of buy less of this good. So as at P naught there is what we call a shortage, then this shortage will lead to a rise in price because producers will realize that there is a shortage, more people are demanding their good than there is the supply of that good. They will be encouraged to increase price. The higher price will lead to more producers producing the good, but at the same time some consumers will be discouraged till we come to point C. This point C, guys, is where quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied again. Why? Because at this point you can see that demand and supply curve meet again. The new demand curve meets the supply curve and we have a higher price P1 and a higher quantity Q1. Now, what do I call this Q1? Should I call this quantity demanded or quantity supplied? And the answer is that since I'm moving along the supply curve, right, a shift of demand curve has resulted in us to move along the supply curve. This is what we call a change in quantity supplied. So the way I'm going to write this, that a rise in demand has resulted in a higher equilibrium price. You can see that equilibrium price has gone up. Equilibrium price has gone up and higher quantity supplied. So whenever there is a movement along the supply curve resulting in a newer supply quantity, this we call is a change in quantity supplied.
Quick pause. If you're finding value in this explanation, there's so much more to discover. At Alt Academy, we break down every A level concept with the same level of clarity. Now, let's continue.
Now let's look at another example of a change in supply. So let's say we are looking at the same market for chocolates, and let's say there is a very good production of cocoa, which is used for as an input for chocolate, and there is a good production, as in productivity has gone up for cocoa farmers, and that has resulted in the supply to go up for cocoa in the market, and that in turn would mean a higher supply of cocoa, or would mean a lower price of cocoa, which would mean that for farmers, the price for cocoa may go down. But for consumers of chocolate, that's good news, because cheaper cocoa will lead to higher supply of chocolate in the market. So let's assume currently we are at equilibrium, and the higher sort of supply of chocolate has happened because one of the inputs, cocoa, has become cheaper. So that would mean supply curve will shift to the right. Now, what we need to see is what is happening at equilibrium now. If this was my equilibrium before, now the supply curve has shifted to the right, and suddenly I have a gap again. Now, this gap is where I'll find out that my quantity supplied is more than quantity demanded at the market going price. So at that market going price, since the quantity supplied is more than quantity demanded, we will have what we call a surplus or excess supply, and this surplus will lead to what we call a downward pressure on prices. The prices will start to fall for this good. As the price falls, and we will realize that uh, more consumers will be encouraged to consume the good, because lower price will lead them to increase the quantity demanded. But at the same time, some producers who are discouraged with the prices will probably stop producing or exit the industry, so the quantity supplied will start to fall. There will come a point when we find a price, for example, this P1, where quantity demanded will become again equal to quantity supplied. And at this price, we will have what we call our new equilibrium, with a lower price and a higher quantity. But again, let's write a term for this. We will say this, that the rise in supply, and the language is important because we need to exactly say what has happened here. A rise in supply has resulted in a lower equilibrium price and a higher quantity demanded. Now, why am I saying quantity demanded? Because this is a movement along the demand curve. So, a change in supply will result in, or a shift in supply will result in a movement along the demand curve. I can't say a rise in supply has resulted in a rise in a lower price and a rise in quantity supplied, because that will be wrong. The supply curve has shifted to the right. Uh, Lower price and higher quantity demanded.
If you found that helpful, imagine what you could achieve with the full economics course. Over 60,000 students have used All Academy to transform their A levels journey. Don't wait and take the first step today.